I see that Lisa Darris is here, and so I think we can go ahead and get started. We'll just have some preliminary things, and then if people join us a couple minutes late, they won't, miss the presentation. First of all, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out and joining us. And this is part of the Inspire by the Fire series that Columbus Outdoor Pursuits presents, and it's just something that with so many events and things canceled, this is just kind of a good way to use that time instead for a little learning and a little inspiration. But we've got Lisa Darris here. She is the executive director of Outdoor Pursuits. And Lisa, anything you want to say just off the top? Well, I'm not sure if I see Lisa's image there, but I don't hear her. So we'll just kind of move on. One of the things we just wanted to mention at the beginning, and it's definitely fits into this session, is we are looking at ways with Outdoor Pursuits to do a little, incorporate a little more gravel, into our lineup of bicycling and hiking and kayaking and all the sports activities that we do. And so Janice Flowers, who is new to our board and also kind of new to gravel riding, she's come up with a great idea that to try and kind of get us into this area of outdoor activity. Jan, you want to tell just a little bit about it?
Sure. Well, welcome everyone, and thanks for joining the group. I've actually been on the Gravel Grinder site for a while, but what I discovered is that most of you are pretty experienced gravel riders, and I didn't see a lot of opportunities for newbies. So my background is I started road cycling probably in 2017. Just started road cycling, did Brewdog, rode with the Pickerington Bicycle Club. But then I discovered this gravel thing because some of the people I rode with, Amanda Orr, and Connie Denny, they all started graveling. So I'm not the greatest climber in the world. So I said, well, let me try this gravel thing, and maybe I can climb in a different environment. I don't have that pressure of all the roadies. So I had, oh my goodness, her name is escaping me. It'll come to me, but she actually offered to take a bunch of roadies, Pickerington Bicycle Club, group of us, on a beginner gravel ride. And were you there, Jeff? That's right. What? Joyce. It was Joyce.
Oh, so Joyce did.
Okay. Yes. So I have been trained by the best. So I went on my first gravel ride with Joyce, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun, and we've done a couple more. So when I joined a board of COP, I said to Jeff, maybe what we can do to try to raise funds and jump on this gravel riding craze is to offer a series of beginner gravel rides in the fall. So after the group sessions are done, we would say it'd be maybe a 4-week beginner gravel ride session where we would have experienced leaders, like we'd call on some of you, some of the Connies, the Joyces, Amanda, and just to do a basic beginner route. And the series would progress so that at the end of it, they would get progressively a little longer route, maybe a little more difficulty, but the prize at the end would be to see Donkey. And we would charge a fee for everybody who participates in all 4 of the sessions. People could jump in and just do one. Haven't really thought out the cost yet, but that is my thought, because I really feel like there's a lot of people, like I said, I'm in the Pickerington Bicycle Club group, and there is some interest in the gravel riding. But of course, from my experience, roadies would need an experienced group lead, because that's what I feel like. You really need someone who understands the routes, someone who can actually make adjustments, because Jeff, we actually made some adjustments on some of our rides. I've been on some rides with Connie, and we've had to make adjustments on the fly. So maybe some of you could provide some input. I know I have seen on your website, sometimes you will offer beginner routes. Personally, I found that they're a little long, because some of the beginners that are roadies, they don't have the fitness level that a lot of you have. So you may say a 42-mile gravel is a beginner, but I tell you that probably wouldn't work. So the ones that Joyce created for us, and even Jeff and even Connie, they were just shortened a little bit. So any questions? No?
Sounds good.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you,
All right.
Janice. And yeah, we will
Thanks.
definitely get some information about that, as it gets pulled together, because I think it's going to kind of fill a niche. And if there's one thing I know about the graveling community, it's like when I got involved in it, because I've been a roadie too, is that y'all are just really eager, to help, and to get people into the sport. And so before I bought a bike or anything, I just showed up at a ride, and there were about a dozen people there, and I just wanted to look at everybody's bike, and see what they had, and ask questions. And it was just like, it was just a torrent, of information. And but that's a wonderful thing, because that's with gravel being something new. It takes kind of that mentoring, I guess, to get people up to speed and feeling safe out there, and choosing the right equipment and everything. And hopefully we can do that a little bit tonight, give some people some insights into that. Before we move on, Lisa, was there anything that you wanted to say regarding outdoor pursuits or upcoming Inspires or anything like that?
Yes, we are planning, as you know, a webinar series throughout the spring, through probably the end of March. Jeff, I know you have one coming up, I believe, next week. Did you already do a plug for that?
Yeah, I mentioned we will be doing an e-bike session with Rick Nolan down at Cyclist Connection, and he's going to show us what's new in e-bikes, and I've even seen some gravel e-bikes out there. So
And road ones too.
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting session.
Hey, Jeff, before you go on, I noticed that there were some questions in the chat, and I'm not sure if they are questions related to our beginner series about the type of equipment that we recommend.
Oh, okay.
Can you take a look at that?
Yeah, there's a little bit, and we will get to some of these as we move through the discussion. I think a lot of those questions will get answered, but Matt Wolf of COP, who's just waving there, is going to keep an eye on that chat, and then he'll bring those up at the end. We'll have a Q&A at the end, and he'll address some of those questions, ask some of those questions of the panelists. And it'll also be a chance at the end, you can ask your own question. We'll you can just unmute yourself at the end and ask questions. And so I guess we'll go ahead.
Jeff, I still wanted to do a plug,
Sure.
though.
Oh,
I'm
sorry.
just to get back to the upcoming webinars. We also have one planned for the second week of March, that Tuesday, and it is going to be a panelist of previous and current club managers for the Major Taylor cycling club here in the area. So that should be a good one too. So we're excited to have them. They're going to talk a little bit about their history and some of the challenges of riding through in a cycling community as a minority. So that should be a good one too. Thanks. That's all.
Okay. And we have just a short poll that we'd like y'all to take. Matt, can you call up that poll where people can see it? Or and it's just it's an anonymous poll, but we're just trying to gauge sort of what people's experience, the people in this group, their experience with gravel riding, and also, what they sort of want to get
So,
out of gravel riding.
Jeff, you'll either have to make Matt a co-host or you'll have to pull up the poll.
Okay.
Yeah, one of us has to be a co-host with you.
Oh, okay, I see.
And
Poll.
he's not, and I'm not.
Let me launch poll.
There you go.
Everybody see it? Yeah, we'll give you a few minutes to do that, and I'll just kind of briefly introduce myself while we're doing this. My name is Jeff Harond. I'm the GOBA director for Outdoor Pursuits, the Great Ohio Bicycle Adventure. And as I've kind of mentioned, I've primarily been a road rider, but got into graveling about a year and a half ago. Wanted to do the Gap Trail in Pennsylvania. We had some friends going over to do that, and just really wanted to join them. So didn't have a bike, to do it with it, because all I had is road bikes. And so I set about the task of figuring out, what I needed, and kind of getting myself, conditioned to do it. And so I sort of backed into gravel riding, but really found it enjoyable. And I still consider myself primarily a road rider, but the gravel biking has really become an important part of, of my activities, I guess. And like I said, I've just found the gravel community so welcome, especially to new people, because they want to get more people, involved in the sport. And there's just some really good resources too through the Ohio Gravel Grinders group, and we'll get into that a little bit later and take a little tour of the OGG website. And let's see. So basically, with Inspired by the Fire, as Lisa said, it's a nearly weekly thing that we do, and this is just gravel riding. I think is just the perfect, the perfect topic for it. And so if everybody has taken the poll, let's see. I think we still have a couple people taking it. So we'll give you all just another minute.
There's a little glitch in it. It's in chat. Just pick your top answer for number 3. Instead of, you cannot choose more than one. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay.
Little technical issue, I guess.
Okay. All righty. We've got 93% of the poll of the votes are in. I guarantee it won't take a week to sort it out. There's some pretty clear-cut answers here, but I can just kind of go over what I'm seeing. It is, let's see, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll at this point, and let's see, share the results. And we can see from this group that about half of you have never have biked on gravel roads, and another 17% rarely. And then we've got the other 42% that are pretty frequent. And then as far as having a bike for gravel riding, and you'll hear all about tires, and I'm sure there's different schools of thought on the sort of the width that you need, but just kind of as a baseline, I said like 32 millimeters. And so most people have a bike that could go out and do at least light gravel. And the other aspects of gravel biking that interest you, and I'm sure we'll touch on a lot of these, but yeah, the rural scenery and the low traffic roads and the relaxed pace, those are and fun with friends. Those are all, that's what you'll get when you're out on those gravel rides. So great. And let's see. And what I'll do too is I'm going to introduce our speakers tonight, and just briefly, and have them talk about themselves. And we'll kind of do this in alphabetical order by last name. So first up will be Kari Hutson. And Kari is, she comes, it looks like mostly from a mountain biker background, and does a lot of racing, endurance events, and the gravel biking. It seems like that's a great way that, that you stay in shape for that, and train for it. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I'm a teacher in Columbus, which is a great thing because that gets me summers to go ride and enjoy my time. I don't honestly remember when I started riding gravel. My husband probably dragged me out on a ride on a wholly inappropriate bike with skinny tires, and I know I was scared to death. He took me on the round barn ride to start. I was deep gravel descent, scared the crap out of me. But we got to see lots of cool scenery. I saw several snakes, saved a few turtles that day, took lots of great pictures. I've never really felt comfortable on the road for whatever reason, numerous reasons, traffic, wind, I get bored. But if you're on a gravel road, it's just got great scenery and it keeps me interested and invested a whole lot longer. I do use gravel riding primarily as a way to get my miles in. Ohio has what's known as mud season most of the year for mountain bikers, and we're kicked off of our trails for quite a bit. And I really like to do endurance events. So I do 100-mile, 24-hour, 30-hour racing, that kind of stuff, which is a blast, but requires a lot of time in the saddle to train. So you can get a lot of bang for your buck on a training ride with on a gravel road. You got climbing, you get handling, stop for snacks, pet a horse, visit with donkey, hang out with friends. I just really love it. It's been a ton of fun. I've really enjoyed it.
Okay. Great. And next up is Matt Kretchmer. And Matt is the chair of the Department of Mathematics and Computer Science at Denison University over in Granville. And it looks like from the little bio he gave me, he was a competitive distance runner and is just sort of transitioned into ultra distance mountain biking and gravel biking. So Matt, tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I do my day job so that I can buy bicycles. So, but yeah, so a little bit like Kari, I come at it from a mountain biking background, and I trained on gravel to kind of bridge the season between mountain bike events. But when I got out on gravel and I started riding with people, I found this wonderful community that doesn't exist in a lot of other cycling genres. And there's a mix of great people and this sense of adventure, and kind of like what Kari said, there's all these interesting things that happen to you during the ride that just make it fun. You find something interesting, or you stop to pet an animal, or you do all these kinds of crazy adventures. And it's that kind of community and sense of adventure that just keeps me coming back. And I feel like I really found a home in gravel. So I really enjoy riding gravel.
Okay, and great. Next we have Eva Simons, and Eva I know well from riding road rides with her, and she kind of got the bug for gravel, and really like a lot of other friends I have, we say they went over to the dark side because they no longer ride road rides with us anymore. They're always out doing gravel, and so let's see. So Eva, tell us a little bit about your story.
Well, so, I'm on the other spectrum. So I don't do any races or endurance events like, Kari and Matt. I call myself a recreational gravel rider. So, this is probably what most people would be interested in, but I just ride for fun. I don't care about the pace. I got into gravel because my best friend talked me into trying it. And that was back in 2013. And I had this old crappy mountain bike that I bought at a yard sale that summer. And, it was sitting in the garage. So I thought, I'm going to try it. So I think sometime late 2013, I did my first gravel ride, and I can't remember if it was the Wilds or the Concourse Hollow, but in either case it was dirty, muddy, hard, and I loved it. And I got hooked because it just reminded me of being a kid, getting dirty, getting muddy, having fun on the bike, and coming home hungry. And that's what I love about these rides, and you just see things that you would not see from either a road bike or a car. You go through rural Ohio and see a lot of Amish buggies and animals and roads, and there are always obstacles, things that are unexpected. I love that aspect. I love the adventure part of it. So now I've gotten better bikes than that first crappy bike, but that's what I did. I rode for about a year on just a very basic mountain bike. So you don't need anything fancy.
Okay, great. One of the things I like in the little bio that Eva had, and I'll quote here, says, "I'm truly a recreational rider and go with the flow of the group. When asked how long the ride is going to take, I often joke that it takes 6 hours, no matter the distance. There's always unpredictable factors outside of the average speed: other riders' pace, mechanicals, detours, surface conditions, exploring roadside attractions, and petting horses and dogs. Every ride's an adventure, and that's what I love most about gravel riding." And I think that really sums it up. And last but not least, we have Aaron Stevenson, who's on the panel. And Aaron says he has been in the bike industry for 15 years, the last 2 years with Kenda Tires. And he has a road racing background and endurance mountain biking, and he's bike packed all across the country. So Aaron, tell us more.
Really, that was what I was going to lead in with, but you pretty much covered it all. I like you said, I do have a road background, and that's what got me into the bike industry originally. And that was our primary, I guess, training that we did. But it morphed into us trying to find, I guess new roads to ride. So running around on 23 and 25 millimeter tires and just trying to find new terrain. There's a prime example there. But that's what it's about for me a lot of times, is just trying to find new terrain, new adventures, new places to go. The bike shouldn't stop you. You should be able to go anywhere. It's definitely an adventure machine. And then that leads into bike packing and touring and such. That's all just multi-day gravel riding, in my opinion. So load up as much as you can and go as far as you can, whether it's out your backyard or someplace across the country. So that's what it's about for me, really.
Okay, well, great. I'm going to throw out some questions to the panel, and you all can just jump in and answer, no particular order. But and then if anybody in the audience has questions, go ahead and for now put them in that chat box, and we'll circle back to them once we get through the presentation. And you can also ask questions out loud during the Q&A part as well. The first question I was going to ask you about what got you interested in graveling and how you get started, and I think a lot of you already answered that in your introduction. So we'll kind of skip ahead. And for most new gravel riders, a lot of the questions they have focus on the bike. What kind of bike do you need, and what about gearing? What about tires? Just before you take up the gravel riding, how do you want to choose that bike?
Anybody want to jump in? Do you want?
I think it's kind of a run what you brung, right?
Right.
I don't think what Aaron said, I don't think the bike should stop you from getting out there. My husband took me out on, I know he took me out on 25 millimeter tires. I know he did the first time. And gosh, I don't think I rode anything bigger than a 28 for probably 3 or 4 years, because that's what was on my bike and I wanted to do it, so I did. I think you just get out there on what you have, and if you are wanting to buy the perfect gravel bike, you'll buy it this year, and next year you'll find something that is even more perfect and even, exactly better what you want. Yeah, get out there.
Kari, I think that that's a good point, is it's hard to tell you right away what is perfect for you. When, just like you said, if you get out there, experience it a little bit, answer your own questions on what your needs are, and then go from there. Now, the bike industry now is offering everything. Whatever the unicorn bike that you want, the bike industry is offering it now. Kari rides a road bike from Bolt Cutter that'll actually fit a mountain bike tire in it. So you can put a narrow tire or a mountain bike tire in that bicycle and ride wherever you want. So, but yeah, tire width is probably the biggest thing that people ask about. And luckily, the new bikes all fit bigger tires. Here in Ohio, 40 millimeter tires is really popular right now. I don't know if Matt or Eva, you wanna comment on that and what you're riding, maybe?
Like I said, I started on a mountain bike. I can't remember how big the tires were, but big enough to handle dirt. And then I got a different mountain bike and used that for 2 or 3 years. It was a hardtail 29er because I rode, single track on it, and I used it for bike packing. I used it for gravel. It was my go-to bike, and I still love that bike. I still like riding gravel on it because it's cushy, it's comfortable on terrain. But I also, now I have kind of a bike that I bought new, and it's heavy steel. It's a super heavy bike. I call it a tank because it's 33 pounds with nothing on it. And then, I have bags on it, but it has 2.2 inch tires, and I like big, comfortable tires. And I run low pressure on it, and it makes me feel safe and comfortable. It's a very comfortable bike.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
But I also rode, there were some rides that I used my commuter bike. Again, old used bike that I bought. It was a cross bike. So whatever you have in your garage, as long as it's not skinny tires, because that will hurt. But any other bike is fine. It doesn't have to be new or perfect or very expensive.
I've been on rides before, and this isn't atypical. This is like regular rides with like 7 people, and there'll be one fat bike, there'll be one full suspension mountain bike, there'll be a hardtail mountain bike, there'll be like 2 like gravel bikes, one like bargain basement, and one like elite carbon bike. And then there's one guy on like a single speed. And for those who are new, that's a bike that has no gears to shift, right? It's just a chain and a cog. It's a road bike, right? And we're all on the same ride, and everybody's enjoying it, and nobody's looking down at anybody's bike. So your bike choice should not stop you from wanting to go try gravel. And then the first time you try it, or the second time you try it, you might start to think then about, like, if you did want to look at a bike, what kind of bike might work better for you? What's not right about the bike you're riding or something. But nobody should not go on a gravel ride because of their bike.
That's a really good point, Matt. It's every OGG ride is every type of bike imaginable, really. It's pretty awesome in that regard. Whereas road riding, you show up and who has the lightest bike kind of happens. And
Amen.
This is just the opposite. So
everybody likes the weird bike. Like, we're all looking at, like, when Matt showed up with his Lauf, I was like, whoa, what do you have? That's super cool. Tell me about it. Everybody just wants to see what you've got, If you're buying a bike, you might want to think about whether you want to go on bike packing or whether you want to have those options long term. Because when you're buying a bike, you're looking at, I know the most important thing for me was tire clearance. I wanted to make sure I had good clearance because I race and I've had some races affected by tire clearance. So I wanted to make sure, and as a smaller rider, tire clearance is hard on smaller frames. It's hard to find. But I also knew that Aaron goes on these super cool bike packing trips that I've never been on, but I'm real jealous. So I want to join him someday. So I wanted to make sure I had some mounting points so that I could put a rack on if I wanted to. And I have 3 places for bottle cages. So when you get ready to buy your gravel bike, it's really fun to dream about all the fun things you might want to do with it and see what's out there and make some choices. I know someone asked about pedals. I don't know about you, Eva, but I know Matt and Aaron and I ride clipped in because for me, it's there's less effort involved with riding clipped in, like it assists the pedal stroke. And when I'm climbing, that's really helpful. So I know we ride clipped in. Eva, I'm not sure. Do you ride flats?
It's platform pedals with, spikes that have good grip on the sole. And I like it because I want to be able to jump off if I'm uncomfortable or if it's, treacherous. And also because, the people I ride with, we like to stop and explore and hike into a cave and, through the woods.
Moonville Tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah. Explore rock houses. And so I just wear hiking type of shoes and, with traction and platform pedals.
The mountain bike shoes is what I primarily see. So mountain bike shoe and mountain bike pedal. Sometimes there may be situations where we can't make it up that hill because it's too steep or too loose. So we walk. Or like Eva was saying, we might want to we might want to traverse something, which is always fun. So mountain bike shoes or some type of flat pedal is just fine, in my opinion.
That just circles back to why I love gravel riding. I'm with you, Eva. If I see a cave, Matt knows. I'm like, Matt, over there, go. Let's go see where that road goes. And sometimes it goes somewhere and sometimes it doesn't. But we have some fun exploring and climbing things and finding all kinds of stuff.
We'll try and get kind of move through all the topics, but one more question I want to have just on this particular one with the bike is gearing. Like the gearing ratios and all that. Is that something I know everybody wants to have a different style of bike and everything, but that seems to be the one common thread that where the gearing can work to your advantage or disadvantage depending on what you've got.
Ohio terrain, where the gravel roads are generally very hilly. There aren't very many flat gravel rides in Ohio. And so you're going to encounter a lot of really steep, short hills, relatively short compared to like mountain climbing or something like that. And so, and then in gearing like bicycles is a choice, personal choice, right? It's like, what gears do you want to have on your bike to climb up those hills? And the first time you experience them, you're gonna wish you had something different, and then you're gonna think about that when you get another bike or something like that. So, but again, if it's too steep to ride up, then walk up it, right? Who cares? So.
I tend to err on the lower side of gearing. A 1 by, whether it's 10, 11, 12, 13, a 1 by system that's lower in gearing is what I prefer, the simplicity of it. And then like Matt said, in Ohio, it is hilly and they are steep. Not all the rides, granted, but we do run into some killer hills, and the lower the better, in my opinion. But that's where I err on things.
By lower, you're talking about the ratio between the crank versus the cassette on the back, right? So where it's
Yeah.
like a one-to-one would be the same size, you know, for each when you're in that gear. But,
Yeah, I'm sub 1-to-1 right now. I have a 36 tooth on the front. If you want to get technical about it, I have a 36 on the front and an 1142 on the back is what I ride on my gravel bike.
I have a 38 on the front, 1142 on the back, so I'm pretty close to Aaron as well. Yeah, I can do the 1-to-1, but on longer rides, I don't. It's nicer to have it a little bit easier because I just want to enjoy myself. I'm not out there to kill myself, so I just want to have a good time. So if that lower gearing lets me climb the hill rather than hike up the hill, that makes me happy.
Yeah, and I have good gearing. The bike, the Surly Bridge Club that I ride has double cog in the front, but it has 42 in the back. So I used to walk hills, but not anymore. I can pretty much climb any hill slowly, very, very slowly. But there are not too many hills that I have to walk. It's really rough. Which there are some routes, as we know.
All righty. Well, one of the things that new riders discover pretty quickly is that there are all sorts of bags and racks and bottle cages, hydration packs, and just other gear that you can spend probably more money on the gear than you do on the bike sometimes. What sort of accessories do you see as like being, you know, really essential for like different types of riding? And I know it's going to be different if you're out doing, say, like a several hour loop versus doing, you know, a longer bike packing type trip. But as you know, try to outfit your bike and you're new to gravel riding, what are some of those essential things that you ought to include?
How good bottle cages might be one that people don't think about too often, but because we're on rougher roads, bottles tend to eject themselves. So that's one to think about, and also a very good flat repair kit with tools.
This year, my bike has 2 bolts on the top tube. So this year I was able to get a bolt-on top tube bag. And that's been one of my favorite things because I can toss all my snacks and my phone, and actually a wind jacket and a couple other things in there. And that way, if I'm going out earlier in the morning and it's going to warm up, I've got storage for things. There's a local company, Donut Sack Bike Bags. They make some really awesome bags for you to choose from. David can do some custom stuff for you too. So those are always good. You could put extra water bottles in those if you need them, but kind of the bare minimum for me is 2 bottle cages and a good flat cat, because I make sure I plan my routes to see, like I'll look at the route and find, okay, there's a gas station here, there's a spring here for water, so that like I make sure I don't want to carry a lot of water with me. I don't like the hydration packs if I don't have to. So I like to plan my routes to make sure 2 to 3 bottles will do for me.
I have all sorts of bags on my bike. So I have a top tube, little, what is it, gas tank. So that's, to keep your car key secure, zipped up, because things fall out on gravel and hills. And then I have the mountain feed bags. And I actually like carrying my water bottles in those because they stay clean. Because on the brackets or in the water bottle holders at the bottom on the down tube or whatever, they get muddy and dirty. So I like to keep my water clean. And I also have a frame bag for food because we like to stop and make coffee. So I have a little camp stove and, a little, cooking kit that I carry. And food, you always have to bring extra food on gravel, more than food on road. So those are my favorite. And then for bike packing, I have more bags. I've done some bikepacking trips, and then there's a handlebar bag that goes in front where I carry my tent and a sleeping pad. Then I have wear panniers where I put my light stuff, like light but bulky, like sleeping bag. And then I always have a rare rack, where I carry a bungee cord. If I need to take off a jacket, I can always strap to the back.
For people who are coming new to gravel riding from the road background, you're just going to need more water probably than you think you might. And you're in really rural areas where there aren't always towns to ride through, or the towns are much sparser. And so having an extra bottle of water, or like Kari said, planning a route so that you're going to hit a store at a certain location and you can refill up. Those are the kinds of things that might catch you the first time you go out riding on gravel. And a lot of road riders too will be surprised at how long it takes to cover a certain distance, and much longer on a gravel usually than it does on equivalent on the road. And so, if you plan like 40 miles between stops, that might be a long time on a gravel ride, and not so long on a road ride. So I would just say, like Kari and Eva, and just carry a little extra food and a little extra water, and then be cognizant of where you're going to refuel if you need to.
Very good point. Yeah.
Great. Let's see, on a lot of the people in the audience tonight probably come from a road cycling, background, on pavement. And as such, they probably, most road cyclists have kind of a natural aversion to gravel. And, but tell us about, bike handling skills that, on a gravel ride that, you'll need, and like basically how to stay upright, when you're cornering and descending and riding on single track, double track, all the various situations that can present themselves on a gravel ride.
I thought I saw somebody in the comments ask that too, how to handle as well. My biggest thing is staying loose, staying flexible, using your limbs as your shock absorbers, and then looking where you're going. I know that sounds ridiculous because we always do that. Don't look right in front of you, look where you want to go. When we're descending on gravel, things can get loose, and we just have to roll with it and see where we want to go. Or just take it easy and go slow. I'm not the fastest descender in the world. Kari will attest to that. I go pretty slow on the downhills, but do what you gotta do.
I mean, it's something you have to work on. Like, I was a brake checker for years and years, which means I rode the brakes on the entire, all the way down and all the way through the turn. And it just, at one point I decided I needed to stop doing that. So you start to talk yourself into all right, loosen up a little bit for the first, it's okay, you can do this. And then you get yourself to loosen up a little bit longer. And I mean, it's taken a long time, but Aaron nailed it. It's staying loose, keeping your points of contact with the bars, like making sure you're solid on your hoods or in the drops, wherever you're choosing to descend, but staying loose so that your body and the bike are almost moving independently of each other. They're kind of floating around each other in that same space, and braking before the turn versus braking through or during the turn. You want to try to scrub your speed before you hit that turn. That will help a lot. And keeping your weight, I'm just thinking on the descents, you want to keep your weight back, because the further forward you get, the more uncomfortable you are. So weight back and nice and loose. The first time you do it just right, you'll feel it, it'll click and you'll be like, oh, yes, that was it. And then it'll take you 7 more rides to replicate that feeling, but it'll get better every time. I think just brake, slow down, and walk it if you're not comfortable. I ride with a friend who shoot, he took his bike down this leaf covered, I don't even know what, with his kid in a trailer behind him. And I'm watching him and I'm like, I'm off, forget it. And so I stopped and got off and I walked down behind him because I just wasn't comfortable. Like he was bombing it and I was so impressed, but nobody cares. We're all just out to have a good time with you. So if you have to get off and walk it, nobody's going to judge. Like we're just happy you're out there with us. So if you're sketched out, get off. It's no big deal.
Well, for me, a couple of things, that's why I like riding platform pedals. So I can always hop off if I feel uncomfortable. And then the other thing that, is different than road, on hills, people tend to stand up and climb. No standing up climbing gravel because you need to keep your weight on the saddle, on the back wheel, or you will spin on loose gravel, fishtail. So that's very different. And like Kari said, on the downhills, on road, I would lean forward, put all my weight down in the hoods to kind of to go as fast as I can. On gravel, you do just the opposite. You lean back to slow yourself down because you don't want to go as fast as possible. Although sometimes I do. I learned the hard way. But I think that was, a couple of the, big differences. And you're gonna get muddy. So forget about this, keeping your bike clean, because on gravel, you're gonna have creek crossings, you're gonna have mud, and it's different every time. Every time you may ride the same route, and it will be different every time. So people who have aversion to dirt and mud, will be surprised, and it's part of the fun.
Someone asked if there were more accidents on gravel, and I actually think there's fewer accidents on gravel than there are on the road. And the reason for that is because on the road, you often ride really close to each other for drafting effects. And then, somebody's wheel hits somebody else's wheel and you go down. And I've seen a lot more accidents on road rides than I have on gravel rides. And, I think, the group that I ride with, we ride every Sunday all year long. And maybe one person falls once a year or something. I mean, it's really uncommon. I don't think a fear of like you're always going to be crashing all the time on gravel. I just don't see that even with beginners that I take on rides. I think it's generally pretty safe.
Yeah, it seems like the thing too is you can use the full width of the road because there's not much traffic, and which is also kind of handy during a pandemic because it makes it easier to social distance, and generally nobody's running a pace line on gravel, so yeah, there's maybe a little less opportunity to crash in one of those. But I guess it kind of, again, we mentioned water and crashes and things like that. As far as when it comes to safety, there's, being out in these remote areas, there's a lot of beautiful scenery and everything, but you also might be miles, from civilization if you need food or water or any sort of aid. And you may encounter loose dogs. And so how do you keep yourself safe out there and find help in case of an emergency?
You make sure you ride with the person that has all the things. I'm the person with the extra food. Like, so I have definitely passed out lots of extra food before. Like I always pack for an extra couple hours, so you pair yourself up with the person, like you get the one person with the extra food, one person with the spot tracker, you just like get your group together.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid to knock on doors. Like I've definitely run out of water before and seen somebody out watering her flowers. And I said, hey, can I get some water? And or I've knocked on a door before to get some water when we ran out. My Wahoo has spot tracking too. So like my husband knows where I am. He can kind of follow my Wahoo route if I share that with him. Garmin does something similar. So you could share your route with someone to be watching out for you. I ride alone, but rarely. I almost always have somebody with me. I just feel more comfortable that way. That way, if something happens, someone else is there to help support us, help get us out of there in case of emergency. I've never had a problem with dogs. I know other people have been bit. I don't have a problem. I yell, no, no, bad dog. And they almost always stop. That bad dog, they're like, ooh, me? I'm not, no, no, I'm not a bad dog. And they stops them. I've never really had trouble with dogs, so I'm not, but I know you can squirt them with your water bottle and kind of do like the zigzag, to give yourself some, in the moment though, you're not thinking of any of that. You're just panicking and riding as hard as you can and hoping they don't catch you. But
Yeah, and I never ride alone on gravel. I'm always in a group, so small groups, but always at least 2-3 other people. So that's not a concern for me. And and I carry the basic repairs, spare tube. Although I ride tubeless tires, but carry a tube, pump, or cartridge. I used to carry extra spoke, but now it's different bikes, different tires, so I stopped doing that. But for dogs, I carry a whistle. I have a whistle on my neck, hanging, so it's kind of handy. That's for the mean dogs. For friendly dogs, I carry dog treats. I always have dog treats in my feed bags in the side pocket. People that ride with me know that. So, and I carry carrots and apples for horses and donkeys. And yeah, so and of course, always a helmet. For mechanicals, for example, recently I did crash in January and my saddle broke, came off the rails, and I had zip ties, and I zip tied the saddle to the rails to finish the ride. Someone else had duct tape, so we kind of, fixed the saddle so I could finish the ride. But yeah, just be prepared for things that can happen that are.
that's a great point, Eva. I did a race in Michigan this past year that was super remote. And I think 10 miles in, maybe, the buckle on my shoe broke. And so I no longer was connected to my shoe and my pedal. So I had electrical tape, so we electrical taped it together. And then the next time we stopped, we took a knife and punched a hole and zip tied it together so that I could keep going until we could get to our sag, which I luckily packed an extra pair of shoes. But yeah, having those extra things. If you're going to be super remote, like on a bike packing trip, you might consider one of those little foil blankets that you could just tuck in with you in case, of emergency. They're very small, take up very little room. So those might be something to consider on a bike packing route.
I'll be the person to definitely agree with Kari on that. I have used emergency blankets in the past, but I guess I'm in the minority. I tend to bike pack alone just for, I don't know, it's something with me, but I do a lot of bike packing trips alone, and my Wahoo transmits the entire time. So people know where I am at least. And then my biggest concern is being able to pedal the bicycle. So anything that I can do to fix the being able to pedal the bicycle is the most important thing. So whether it's a spare chain link, spokes, spare tubes, even I've gone as far as even carrying spare chainring bolts. Now, keep this in perspective though. This is for bike packing and not necessarily going on the Homer route to see donkey. I'm not necessarily recommending carrying everything all the time, but bike packing is a different animal. So, but definitely being able to pedal the bicycle and whatever that means in your repair kit.
All righty. Anybody have anything else to add?
One more thing that I thought of, since a lot of people use navigation systems and phones for navigation, and I always carry an extra battery pack. to supply, because out there you may run out of charge on your phone, and so that's just something. And because I do backpacking as well, a lot of this translates to, either hiking, backpacking, or bike packing. Some of the emergency items are very similar, so.
Yeah, okay. One thing, and I think all of you all are involved with Ohio Gravel Grinders, and mentioned earlier that's just a really great resource for riders, not only to learn about bikes and gear and skills, but also it's a fantastic repository for maps, route maps, and with just dozens and dozens of gravel rides in Ohio, and then also some links, to ones in other states. And OGG also has a Facebook page, which is really nice, and kind of a lot of real-time stuff. There's the website has like journals, like somebody will do a particular route, particularly if it's a newer route, and they'll write about it and kind of tell the account of what's out on that route, things to watch for. But the Facebook page is a little bit more real time kind of live information, people posting from their rides. But I'm going to screen share the OGG site, and why don't you guys talk a little bit about that, and then I'll try and if you point out something, I'll try and show it on the screen. So let me get that called up. Okay. And yeah, it's just you'll find it's a very clean, site that's easy to, to see the links and everything. You've got the Gravel 101, and that's kind of the tips and on bike buying and gear and all that. And then the Ohio routes, take a peek at that. And it's fantastic. You can see, I'll try and zoom in a little bit, but it's just like, this also kind of gives you a sense in Ohio of, like, particularly central Ohio, where the routes are. And they're generally east and toward those hills, and places like Bladensburg and Homer and St. Louisville and Flint Ridge and a lot of places south too, like Tar Hollow and Scioto Trail, and just but this is just like, if you're looking to find a gravel route, this is really the place to do it. And there's various levels here, as far as some of them are newer routes that maybe have not been fully vetted, haven't really been explored, and they're kind of, I think they call them maybe explorer routes or something. And so those are ones that, yeah, you may not, it may be a little bit of mystery as to what you run into out there, whereas there's others that are pretty heavily and regularly traveled by gravel riders. So this is just a great resource for it. And as you go down, you'll kind of see some of the routes that are highlighted, and kind of the fine print about be careful. And then the journal is the area that has a lot of those reviews, and they're archived and everything for the various routes. And it just kind of gives you a sense of how difficult they are. And somebody had mentioned that you may encounter creek crossings and things like that. And, that would be in here. And then also big hills, and even somebody will tell you, if there's places where there's packs of loose dogs or something like that, sometimes that'll be reflected in the journal. So that's also just a really fantastic resource, and pretty up to date, a lot of it. And then there's just various other links to racing series and their national events. And so it's just like I say, if you're into gravel riding, that's really a spot that you'd want to visit. Does anybody else have anything they want to say about the OGG website or OGG that we should?
So those explorer routes, I would not recommend them if you're new to gravel. The explorer routes are where you're gonna, the one we did in Tar Hollow, I did it on my full suspension mountain bike and I still walked some of the things because I wasn't comfortable. So if you're gonna do the Explorer route, you need to go into it with a sense of adventure. The route took me through a creek bed. Like we made the right turn and there's no road. It's just a creek bed. And we're like, what do we go? What is our GPS off? Like, what do we do here? So the Explorer routes, I would say, are not for the beginner. I think the Explorer, I love them. They're my favorite kind of ride. Matt knows, and every time I'm like, hey Matt, do you want to go do the Tar Hollow route? And he's like, heck no, I don't, because they're a lot of work. But if you go to to a route, I saw just a popped up in the chat for a quick second. If you go to one of the routes, it takes you to ride with GPS and you're able to load the route directly to your navigation system of choice. So I've never been, with the exception of that stream bed, and it was right. I followed the track. That was where I was supposed to go. I just didn't trust it in the moment. I've never done an pulled a route off of the site that was not clear. It was totally easy to follow. You just load it onto whatever your GPS system that you're using is and follow it. They do a really nice job of making them clear and current. So if somebody has ridden it and the road is closed or we're no longer allowed on property that we used to be allowed on, it'll be updated and they'll have rerouted it immediately. So you can load it to your GPS and have no worries about getting lost.
Couple of things I wanted to add. There was a whole section for beginner routes with Q&A and questions answered, but also specific routes for beginners. And there are some shorter routes, 20 some miles, and they're a little bit flatter, closer to Central Ohio. Also, another thing, there was a club account, Paradise Garage, has sponsored a membership or club account that with the Ride with GPS. So if you don't have a paid account with Ride with GPS, which is I think $50 a year, if you join the club account, which is free, you just have to join it from the website. You get access to all the benefits that you would with a paid account. You can print cue sheets if you don't have a GPS device. You can download it. You can download to your phone. So, it's a really good benefit.
Yeah, as you can see, there's these drop-down menus with just a lot of details. The website, it's www.ohiogravelgrinders.com. So real easy to remember.
I think I'd also like to add.
Ray George, the creator of the website, and he updates it regularly. So.
Mm-hmm. I think I'd also like to add that there's regular group rides being planned all the time, and it's not just a couple of people. Typically, when you show up, there is anywhere from 10 to 50 people. So I'm sure there's somebody there to ride with and enjoy yourself. So there's always rides being planned by OGG.
One of the things we're hoping to do once COVID calms down a little bit and it's safer to be in groups is we're hoping to do some monthly women's rides that'll be led by female ride leaders, and anyone's welcome, but we're gearing them towards getting women out and more comfortable on their bikes on the gravel rides. So we were in talks to set dates and make plans when everything got shut down last year with COVID. So we are, that's hopefully going to be in the works. That'll be nice.
Okay.
One thing, sorry, Jeff. One thing I just wanted to add that's kind of unique about this website and the Facebook group is it's not a corporation. It's not an organization. There's not a president. There's not membership. It's a group of people who love riding gravel and have invested, their energy into making something pretty sweet. And one particular person, Ray George, has done a lot of the work, and we should definitely mention that. And then a couple of, corporations have stepped in too. Candid Tires has been a supporter financially, and, Paradise Garage has helped a lot as well. But it's not it's not an organization, and it's really kind of remarkable that this kind of grassroots effort came to be, and it's created this wonderful thing.
It really is honestly one of the best in the country, bar none. They do a wonderful job.
Okay. And before we get to the Q&A, we wanted to give you a chance to weigh in. We covered a lot of ground in discussing the how-tos and of gravel riding, and so let's close out with the whys, and why is gravel riding become your personal passion, and why is it something, I guess maybe more importantly, since you've kind of told us a lot about that already, is why is it something that you'd recommend to other people to do, particularly newcomers?
I can start. I love the adventure aspect of it, so that's my favorite, because it's different every time, and there are obstacles. There are, like I said, quick crossings. It's just fun, and then safety, because you rarely see cars when you ride on these forest roads. Occasionally you'll see a pickup, but you hear it long before you see it. They usually drive a little slower, and because it's hilly. Let's see. Cross training for other sports, because gravel you can ride year round pretty much. If you have the proper bike with, bigger tires, you can ride in snow, you can ride in mud, you're not limited to the, road cycling season. And that's why I love riding gravel. That's why I started kind of first as off-season training, but now it's year round. And then, and the fun aspect. You are not in pace line. There is no, when people ask me, or, when someone asks me what time I'll be back, I said, I don't know, whenever the ride is over, because it depends on who shows up, and we stay together. We don't leave anyone behind. So if there is a slower rider, we just wait, and, whatever it takes. So kind of go with the flow.
I think there's a lot less ego in gravel cycling for me. I felt like I never found a good place with road riding. Like the fast group was too fast for me, and I don't like the pace lines. I want to riding my bike is social. I want to talk to my friends. I want to talk and have fun while we do it. And so gravel riding, there are, like Eva said, there are no pace lines. And if you see something that looks cool, you get off and explore, because that's what you're out there for. The lack of ego, the chill, relaxed feel, I think I really like.
I like the safety of it. I've been hit several times, and it's not fun. But when you're out in Scioto trails in Chillicothe, I mean, the most you'll see is people in their cars mushroom hunting, and a person on a horse. So I feel very safe, and I'm able to enjoy the ride more.
People have hit all the buttons that I like to press, but I'll add one too. I'm kind of an Ohio history buff. I love reading about like abandoned ghost towns and like ghost stories and murder mysteries. And there are all these cool places out there, and they're all out in like way out there. And then they happen to be near gravel roads, right? And so this wonderful gravel route gets created where we get to go on like this history lesson and see the sites where this famous thing happened or this tragic event happened. And that's just cool. So I just get excited about that. So.
I totally agree.
Yeah, and as Amanda just said, we stop for horses, we stop for donkeys, we stop for sheep. I mean, whatever, there are so many cool animals out there, and especially in the Amish country. And, you know,
I've been on several rides where we actually take livestock and put them back in an enclosure after they've escaped, because why not, right? There's a cow running down the road, like, okay, let's usher it back into its pen and shut the door. So
Speaking of which, here's Eva with her,
yeah,
her new friend.
yeah. What was the name of that pig? I can't remember. Oh, shoot, Boo Boo. Boo Boo, that pig.
All righty. Well, I think as we've been going along, Matt has been monitoring the chat box, and maybe Lisa has a little bit too. Do you guys see anything in there that didn't get addressed along the way?
Boy, I had to step away for a few minutes, so I'm not sure which ones of these have gotten answered, but there are a lot of questions in here.
Okay. Well, we can go ahead and just, if you want to ask a question, just unmute yourself and fire away.
Yeah, that might be the best way to do it at this point.
Oh, come on. Somebody's got to go first.
Somebody has to have a question that didn't get answered in the question box.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'll ask the first question. Where is the donkey? And I'm sharing the screen. It's on the Homer route. So it's one of the beginner routes. So go take a carrot, put it in your back pocket, and go ride the Homer route and find the donkey.
You won't miss him, because when he sees you coming, he will start braying and making a ruckus. So you will find him.
I will also say that the Homer route is one of the least amounts of elevation change. It's pretty flat.
And there's loops, so you can make it shorter too. So there's definitely places where you can cut off.
Perfect, Matt. Yeah, it's a great starter in my opinion. So that's the Homer route.
I know somebody asked about tubeless versus running tubes and clinchers. I know Eva said she runs tubeless. I run with tubes because that's just easier for me to deal with in case of emergency. And I also don't ride the same tires all the time. So if I'm going to switch them out, I don't want to mess with tubeless goo. I don't know what Aaron and Matt are running.
Because I switch out tires all the time as well, working for Kenda, I tend to ride with tubes, frankly. I will say though, a tubeless setup does ride smoother, and it can definitely help with punctures. So if you have the opportunity to set up tubeless, definitely try it, and then play with tire pressure and see what rides well for you.
Tubeless is more convenient, but if I'm gonna go halfway across the country and ride 200 miles in a race, I'm going tubeless, because I do not want to change a flat tire, and then tubeless are just, I hardly ever have flats with tubeless.
Yeah, the safety of it. I'd also like to mention, double check your fluid levels. I've had a lot of athletes that have issues with tubeless sealant drying up, and it doesn't work that way. So definitely top those off every 3 to 6 months.
A question about tubeless. If because I got my gravel bike last year and rode it a lot, and it's kind of been sitting because I've been on the trainer. Should I just top it off? Can it dry while it's been sitting there? What should I do, after it's been sitting there? I think last time I've been on was December.
Yes, so it does two things. It dries up, and it also it separates. And when it separates, it doesn't do any good. So sometimes we have to take the tire apart and actually clean out the bad stuff and put in new, fresh, depending on how long it's been. So might be worth a check.
All right, thanks.
Does that help? Okay, thanks.
No, I don't. I think I'll have someone check it out because it's been, I didn't ride it all of January, so.
Yeah, it's bike shop, of course, might be able to help out. There's little dipsticks that Stan's and Orange Seal sell now to put down through the valve stem. That's an easy way to check without having to take it completely apart too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Somebody else?
Sure, I've got a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm an old roadie and still riding a road bike. If I can throw 28s on, are there some relatively smooth, don't really care so much about the elevation, but relatively smooth short routes just to experiment with a little bit?
I would say Homer or Scioto Trails are both places that you could take those 28s and not hate your life. And Scioto, I don't know what they actually have up on the site because I have Scioto memorized at this point, so I don't know what the routes are, but you can do anything. Scioto is really nice. If I'm gonna go ride by myself, I'm gonna go to Scioto because it's essentially all enclosed within the park property and you have cell service everywhere you're at. And it's very easy to cut off anywhere. So you can create those loops to be any length that you want. Homer, if you're going to cut it short, I would recommend you on your GPS hit reverse the route. That way you get to see Donkey if you're going to cut it shorter than the posted route on the site.
A quick note, so Scioto Trails, that's great, but it's very hilly. So, you know, if you're not in super shape, the hills are very steep, they're short, and the roads are in great condition always. They dry out, there is no mud, but be prepared for climbing.
Okay, thanks. I mean, I'm geared reasonably low for road, 32/28. So I'm not quite 1-to-1, but I could do, you know, most of the road routes in southeastern Ohio, including the short, ugly hills, you know, around Lancaster.
You'll be okay then. If you're riding around Lancaster, then you'll be okay at Scioto. No problem.
Yeah, thank you.
Seems like one that I've enjoyed is the Shock gravel route up in Morrow County. And it's about probably 50% gravel, 50% paved. And as I recall, there's no huge hills or anything and no like really, you know, nasty gravel. So that might be, you know, another possibility.
All right, thanks.
Someone asked a question about cell phone coverage, and I mean, I used to be more carrier dependent. I think, you know, nowadays most of the carriers are pretty much the same, but I have Verizon and I have hardly ever been completely out of cell phone service even out in the boonies in the last year or 2 or 3. You know, 10 years ago, yeah, there were a lot of dead spots, but those are going away pretty quickly.
So I wanted to add, there is a section on the OGG website for dirty road section. So if someone wants to just get a taste of gravel, but not necessarily commit to, you know, 50 miles of it, of hard gravel, the dirty roads are kind of a mix of gravel, but mostly pavement. They're still rural. So you get to ride, you know, away from traffic, and you'll get sections of gravel, but it won't be as hard as, you know, some of the more advanced routes. So that's something to look at.
Yeah. Tell me if I'm correct on this. Just kind of my anecdotal experience is that a lot of times the gravel, you know, it's not continuous, but there's just kind of like pockets of area with gravel and you're using paved roads to connect to those. And so generally on a gravel ride, you're always going to have some pavement somewhere. It's just you're kind of linking up to these clusters.
Yeah. We're not lucky enough in Ohio to have a lot of continuous gravel, so we have to kind of hunt around and find it. Sometimes gravel roads get paved, sometimes paved roads get let go, kind of turned into chip seal, and we find new gravel that we didn't know was there next year. So we'll show up to ride a route and we're like, oh, this road is gravel now, great.
Yeah.
So
I think Scioto is mostly gravel, but you definitely have to link a couple of paved roads to get to the ridges and such. But yeah, like Kari said, you definitely have to link up some roads.
Questions? Anybody have more questions?
I would like to ask the group, and you can email the office or talk to Jeff later. You don't have to answer it now, but in 2019, we offered a gravel ride as a part of one of our larger events, Tosserve. And we worked with the Shawnee area, the Shawnee Forest group down in Portsmouth, Ohio, a cycling group, to partner with them because we wanted to expand the event to not just the Tosserve route, but to really have a bike celebration in Portsmouth. We ended up canceling it. We realized some things that we did wrong to market it. People just didn't think of Tosserve as having this component, but we're wondering if it's something we should look at again in the future, if that's something people would be interested in, to join the Tosserve party. It's a big party if you haven't been down on Saturday night, live bands and festivities. And so we thought that Saturday there'd also be this ride in the Shawnee, or in the Shawnee Forest. But it just wasn't, not a lot of people, maybe a few people on this call might have signed up for it, but we had less than 20 people sign up for it. So just something to think about. We're trying to, kick that idea around a little bit too. Maybe not for this year, but next year.
Yeah. And
Well,
what was it?
I'll put in 2 bits worth since I rode Tosserve that year. As a road rider, you're pretty well whipped by the time you get down there. And best intentions, we really want to sit around the park and relax a little bit, and then just try to recover. So
no, you wouldn't sign up for both events. They'd be separate events on the same weekend.
Yeah, I know where I'm going with this is I think you're drawing from the same group of people. People who ride Tosserve may also be gravel riders, and they're going to pick one or the other.
Oh.
It's the same group of folks.
Okay, that's good feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, it is something that, I think outdoor pursuits probably should pursue again. Sarah Swallow, who's I believe she's a professional gravel racer, or at least a kind of elite gravel racer. She's the one that designed the route for us, as I recall, Lisa, in Shawnee State Forest. And so I'm sure it's an excellent route. But yeah, we would just kind of needed to have a better understanding of how that tied into Tosserve. But yeah, I think that that may be something that is could be a future event for outdoor pursuits, and
well, not if everybody's going to choose, though, per the feedback we just got.
Yeah,
it's going to be hard to convince people to leave the traditional Tosserve to do this event, and that makes sense. I kind of had in my mind that they might be 2 separate. I mean, there would be some crossover, obviously, but I thought there'd be enough.
I think you've got also, you've got a spare weekend now. since we've pushed Tosserve back from its original Mother's Day date, we opened up a weekend between the traditional Tosserve warm-up road rides and the event itself. There's now an open weekend in there. So I think there should be an open spot on the calendar to pop something in.
Well, perhaps. I mean, we're a little busy the week before Tosserve, but we could look at something like that. Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be able to do it that weekend, at least from a staff standpoint. We're small and mighty, but not that mighty.
Understand, believe me.
Okay. Questions, more questions?
I saw someone asked about routes that were within an hour of Columbus. That's tricky. It depends on what part of town you're in too. I'm central. The routes up at Mohican are about an hour and 10 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on which ones you're starting at. Scioto Trail is about an hour and 5 minutes. Homer is 45 for me because, like I said, I'm right center. I'm right near campus. It's tricky to find gravel within an hour. So I think that is what sometimes can deter people from participating. If you have families and stuff, that then you've got the drive time plus your ride time, factor in pictures and whatever else. It's, you're always going to have time that you stop and eat and chat and whatever, and then driving back home. So just think about that when you're planning those routes.
There are some routes, Bladensburg, Flint Ridge, Homer, that are just around, all within an hour
I
from.
always forget about Flint Ridge. Thank you, Eva.
Yeah, it seems like, and I know it's kind of a frequent topic on the OGG Facebook page, is it's really hard to find any great land when you get west of Columbus and like into Southwest Ohio. There's always people saying, tell us where the gravel routes are. It just doesn't seem to be that many.
Lisa brought up the gravel event that she was talking about, but there is also a gravel series in Ohio for people who want to try to join them. And there's usually different distances in those series. And they're technically races, but the 5 to 10, 15 people up front who care about racing are racing, and the rest of the people are there to just have a good time and enjoy riding gravel with other people. And there might be food and music afterwards and that kind of thing, especially in a non-COVID year. But they're more like fun events, or big group rides that are fun, where you can challenge yourself than actual races. So give that a look out too.
Okay. Well, unless anybody has any more questions, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And yeah, many thanks to our fine panel. You guys are fantastic, and you bring a lot of experience and a lot of enthusiasm to it too. I think anybody who's thinking about gravel, after watching this, I hope they're pretty gung-ho about wanting to get out and do it.
Thank you, Jeff. Thanks, Janice. Thanks, Lisa. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Get out and ride with us.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening. Thanks.
Bye.